So I think organically, the agency's been around for 20 years. So we seem to get quite a bit of that.
Get a lot of referrals, you mean?
Yeah. And the only challenge with any of that is your clients are very broad and they're in every sort of business you can imagine, right? It's not specifically in
not niche based.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really keeps us on our toes for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. What's a good fit versus a bad fit client for you at this point?
Well, I like to try to stay in the renovation contractor space, but our agency does everything from mining companies to municipalities, just everybody, politics. Like it's not niche down. It's open to just about any business you can imagine. And our team, there's like 15 of us now. So there's lots of great talent on board to be able to handle it from branding to the creative side of things, to messaging. I think we have it all under control.
Well, that's aspirational. If you have everything under control, that's awesome. How many people do you have in your agency?
There's 15 of us now. We're trying to hire the 16th person now. And I think we're doing, really well with keeping everything under control. We just need to move things through a little bit quicker. But that's all systems and processes, and it takes time to implement those.
Yeah. So are you like going to cap out? I'm sorry, I'm focusing on you, Paul, but you have such a good amount of experience and knowledge here. Are you going to you have a goal that you're going to cap out at, or are you just going to go until the wheels fall off as far as growth?
That's interesting. I'm 59, so 60. I'm 60 this year. At some point, retirement does sound kind of cool, but I don't think I'm that guy. I think I'll always be with my hands in the pie, doing different things, because I love meeting people. I love helping local small business. Nothing better, man. Nothing better when you can move the needle for a local business where they look at you and say, things have changed since we met, and it's for the better. And there's no greater feeling. So I don't know. I think the lead gen side of it, when I approached Scott, my brother-in-law, who owns the company, I said, look, the lead gen side is what I want to peel off for retirement. So I have that in my back pocket. But what am I going to do without, this is what I do.
Right.
Well, I can only mow the lawn so many times, right? What am I going to do?
I never see you posting pictures on Facebook of mowing the lawn. You're always on a jet.
I got that hired out.
Yeah, exactly. Buy back your time. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining. We love to have you here, and just appreciate your insight and all of the example that you can give. Who else has some wins from the last week? Anybody crushing it out there? What do you got, Greg?
Well, I got one this morning here. Been
nice.
Two words. Heat map.
Heat map prospecting.
Again, it was actually a referral.
Heat map prospecting.
No, it was a referral. So it's the same old story. People come in and they're kind of skeptical and stuff. I'm like, I don't know about moving my business. And honestly, I might put this in the post there the other day, but I did his area, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know how I'm going to help you, because in his area he had all these ones. But as I let him start talking and trying to draw some stuff out, and then he opened up to me and said, well, this is really where I want to dominate. And his competitors were killing him there. So that's where the conversation left, and we had a quick little meeting.
Like different sub niches, or different?
No, just a bigger area.
Oh, bigger area. Okay.
Yeah, a bigger area where he was at. So it's more profitable a little bit down in the map. We do a 13 by 13. Down the south part of it, a little further down, is where he really wanted to be from his location.
Nice.
So,
well, congratulations, man. Start stacking them up. Yeah. What do you got, Robert? Mr. Strada?
Hey, Jeff. Last week we're in a little bit of a rush during the Rank Masters call, so I wasn't going to say it, but yeah, I got a win, first one ever, because of this group called LeadSnap. They're pretty cool. Seriously, the heat map tool helped me so much. I presented that in the video audits, and it was just absolute game changer. It was an absolute game changer to show them value and all that stuff. But yeah, $750, and next month hopefully I'll get them get to meet more, you know?
Nice. That's awesome. Congratulations. That was your first deal, right? Your first real deal?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, first
Yeah.
SEO, first lead gen.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, off to the races now. You can stack it up like Paul does and just keep going.
Yep, hopefully. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Who else? Anybody else got some wins from the last week they would like to share? All right. Well, we didn't set up the event for this call, so unfortunately, we're having a lot of new things coming into the mix and people that are helping us kind of get things organized and everything. And the call invite didn't go out, so we don't have as many people on the call as we normally would. But today we have Jannery in the house, and I want to just have a conversation with Jannery about her journey through lead gen. And we've never had this conversation, even though we've seen each other face to face a bunch of times. Like, I don't know if it's 10 or whatever, 5 or 10, but we've been in a lot of places together in the same room over the years. And I know that Jannery has her own lead gen journey along the way, and it's just been amazing always seeing her just taking action, curious about learning more, and always staying positive through the process. So that's why I wanted to ask her to join me here today and just kind of give her insight into where did she come from, how did she get here, where is she going with her lead gen business, and how she's gotten over some of the challenges that have come up, and how she sees like the community, networking, different things like that, and how that's played into her own journey and how that has taken her to where she has gotten to be today and where she's going. So welcome, Jannery. Thanks for your time and energy coming on here and sharing with everybody so that some of the other people on this call can get a little bit more of a reference point about potentially how their past experience can help them in lead gen and propel them into a lead gen careerist as we are these days.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the introduction.
You're welcome.
So I guess I'll talk a little bit about how I got into lead gen, like you mentioned. So we met.
Because you're always like, not only positive, but you're always sharing, like you want to impact, right? Like I've heard you talk about impacting your family, like you're teaching them to do things in lead gen so that they can change their lives and all of these things. So that's another piece of it that I'm really interested in hearing more about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really love helping people overall. Like that's one of the things that attracted me to this model. Not only the freedom and laptop lifestyle and all that good stuff, which is great, make a lot of money, but money, believe it or not, doesn't drive me. But impacting and really helping people and just doing things that really make a difference is really what I love and enjoy. And I do love the business, I'm very businessy. So I started obviously with 2016, I learned obviously about a program and learned lead gen then. And, a lot has changed just through the years, whatnot, and it has evolved a lot. Like I've gone like up, down, you know how it goes. It's all like mental, a lot of the mental part of being an entrepreneur and whatnot. But go ahead and ask me a question, I guess, and then I can go from there. But pretty much you can guide me, I guess.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Well, let's start kind of like at the beginning. Who was Jannery before lead gen? What got you into it? Like, what was that catalyst that said, okay, I'm going to change my life with this business model. I'm going to give up whatever that thing was that you were doing. I don't know if you were, you went to college and you had a corporate job, or you had a corporate job without going to college, whatever. But then you're like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm doing this. I'm going to be entrepreneurial. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to pave my own path. Like, what did that transition look like?
Yeah, I studied accounting. So my bachelor's degree is in accounting, and I did not go the accounting route. So I became a financial analyst at a casino. Really enjoyed it. And, that really was good. I like the numbers, but I always been an entrepreneur. So when I learned about the lead gen business, it just kind of fit all the check boxes. And I was like, I'm just going to do this and go all in.
Right. Where was that casino, Jannery?
Oh, Connecticut. So I was born in New York and raised in Rhode Island, and then I moved to Connecticut. and whatnot. So was there for like 5-6 years.
How long did you work as an accountant before you got into lead gen?
I did about 5 years.
Okay.
Mhm.
So enough to get some experience and some
Yeah.
skills like working with people and things like that. I guess you were kind of back of the house, but how did the skills and experience that you got working in a casino as an accountant, did any of that play over or transfer over into what you've been doing in lead generation?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to sit down with the CEO. So I was in the executive part of the casino. So like learning how, like the business side of things on how they looked at the income statements and all that stuff to really maximize revenue and whatnot. Those skills, I think, helps me in business just overall to run my business. And then another part to it, we did a lot of like technical pieces to it as an analyst. So I think the techie side of that actually helped me. I remember at the beginning, I built my first website at 19. I think that kind of helped me build my first lead gen and go from there. So.
Right. That didn't seem intimidating, but like the tech didn't seem intimidating to you. Because I think a lot of people can come into lead gen. And I mean, I'm not like tech focused, but I've been tech exposed and tech curious or whatever, however you want to say that, over my life. And so when I got into lead gen, obviously there were a lot of technical things that I had to learn. And I think that can be a huge challenge and barrier to entry of getting into lead gen. I was used to being on the computer all the time and had, I was a pretty fast typer and all of that stuff. So I know that can hold you back, but I guess, the tech was, can be a challenge for sure.
Yeah, it can be a challenge. And I think what I was gonna say, I didn't realize that I was techie until I think financial analyst came in. Like until that career came in, then that exposed me to that I actually enjoy and I was good at it. I didn't realize it. And it did help me a lot. Right.
Gotcha. So you've been more into, like, I don't say more into, but equally, at least from an outsider's point of view, in the sales side of things. And you seem to do pretty well at that. Like, say you're a people person, you know how you communicate well and, communicate your value and all of that. Like, what does the sales side of your business look like? Like, how has that worked out for you?
Yeah, with the sales side of things, I'm a little bit of a natural, I guess, like you said, I'm a people person. I've obviously taken some programs and stuff like that has helped me. So I think it's important to me, like you said earlier, like I like to learn. So sales wise to me has changed a lot, where it's more of a conversation and really lead in by helping them and see if I can help these business owners. So, as soon as I get somebody that's a good fit and I'm just doing a discovery call and just learning more about their business, it's just pretty natural to me. And I still have a lot to learn though. I'm still learning on some skills, obviously, in rank master and stuff like that, just to sharpen my skills. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I love sales. So that's kind of like, if I could just do that, then I and I will say this, I think dealing with contractors and having a female speaking to them, I think that does make a difference. It does help me. It is an advantage to an extent doing sales. So it does really help me.
How is that an advantage? Because I think some women would probably consider it to be a disadvantage. Like anything can be an advantage if you use it as such, right? So how do you posture that your gender is an advantage?
Yeah, I think it's a pattern interrupt. I don't think they get one. Marketing is, I feel like, more male dominated. And a lot of the calls that these contractors get is usually male. So when I come in and call and I'm speaking their language, it's not just being like, hey, I'm a woman, but I understand, and I hit their pain more. I know sales to an extent. So I think that really helps. And I think it kind of gets their guards down, right? Like women are more nurturing and whatnot. So they kind of like bring it down and they're able to listen, or at least give the opportunity to listen.
Right. How do you get past that initial kind of communication? I don't want to say point. I guess the communication point where you get on the phone with them, like there's a lot going on in that first few seconds of you revealing who you are, like, and them judging, is this a real person? Like, is it home advisor or whatever that conversation looks like? Like, how do you get past that first initial step of the conversation to get them to take the step after that, right?
Yeah, I guess this depends on where the lead is coming from, I would say. I don't do a lot of cold calling overall, but once I conversate with them, and if it is coming like I call them out of nowhere, I try to connect with them more on like human to human and not be so salesy.
Mhm.
And I actually let them know sometimes, hey, I'm a small business owner. I'm here in Tampa. I am not home advisor. Like I kind of say that in the conversation, just to, depending on how that conversation is from the beginning, and just say, hey, I'm here to pretty much help you. So I don't say anything techie, no salesy, nothing like that. I try to keep it as natural and kind of be me through the conversation. So they're like, oh, okay. So, yeah. I
Yeah,
even
sometimes.
mentioned I'm sorry. I even mentioned to them I'm not a big, huge company. They like that sometimes. Like, hey, I'm just like you is all. I'm trying to connect with them.
Yeah, sometimes I can feel a little awkward in the early stages of even, me personally, I feel a little awkward in the conversations in the early stages because it's like I'm trying to convey so much information in as few words as possible to the business owner to let them know I'm not home advisor. You can trust me. I'm not trying to just take your money. Like I can actually do what I'm saying I can do. Like get past all of those things that have been perhaps bad experiences for them in the past where they've gotten burned. They have trusted somebody and somebody took their money or promised them something that they didn't deliver or whatever. And it can be a little awkward. And I think sometimes like if I listen to myself, I cringe, because I'm like, oh God, like why did I say that? Like, or whatever, like that sounded not very confident, but I don't know. I mean, it's all in flow, from my perspective. And it's like, maybe it's endearing to them a little bit at a subconscious level where they're not even aware of it, where they're like, oh, this guy, he knows what he's talking about, but he's also authentic. He's like, he knows that he's overcoming a challenge here by getting me to listen to him because I've been on call when I first started sales and was banging the phone. Like I have people just like, no, like, I'm not interested, and I don't like that because it's like, if you don't even know what I have to offer, how can you not be interested? So it is a little bit of a touch and go situation in the beginning of those conversations. Again, like when I'm coming in more cold, which is more of what I do now because we take on referrals for new clients. Those are warm. It's all good. But if we have assets that are producing, most of the time, 80% of the time, I'm reaching out to somebody relatively cold. I might be able to anchor into, hey, I saw your name in X group or Y group, or I know so and so or whatever, and kind of get a little bit of a rapport and credibility there. But most of the time nowadays, I closed a guy this morning on a trial deal and he gave me his credit card and everything, so it's super cool. I think he's going to work out because we did a dance about a month ago and then I couldn't get him to respond to me. And so I put it to somebody else. I put the leads to somebody else and they couldn't close. So I came back around to him and I said, hey man, this thing's still available, but you got to get on a call with me. And so I took his credit card this morning and it's like, for that guy, he's like, yeah, we're still working with Home Advisor and, those leads are crap and whatever. So it's like, yeah, I'm not Home Advisor. Same thing you said. It's like, I'm different. Like I work with X number of clients in your niche and this is what we do. We're not going to, quadruple sell your leads or anything like that. So that gives me the opportunity to really, dig in a little bit deeper and establish my credibility, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it plays a huge role on who you're talking to, right? Like you
Yeah.
need to know, like, do a good job qualifying that. I think my biggest mistake is that I have spoken to anybody that's a contractor or anybody that's in a specific niche. Even within that niche, do they check out all your box of your ideal client? Can they afford you? Do they believe in marketing? I think that's a mistake that I had, and I actually did in the last year or so, maybe for like 6 months or so. I hired an appointment setter and I had them just go ahead. Remember, I think I told you, and just target as many contractors, add them to my Facebook, add them this and do this other stuff. And it was like just a bunch of contractors. That's great, but are they my ideal client? And I think that's really important when you're having these conversations too, even if you're doing colds. And that actually was a cold that I did. And I was talking to unqualified contractors. I'm talking about like 1-man shows, like not good.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you on that. I've definitely made that mistake myself, and it's more conscious, I think. Like sometimes if I'm, especially because of my time is limited, I'm in a hurry, like I will make exceptions. I made one this week that was crazy. And I put this guy on some stuff over the weekend, and he texted me on Sunday night and he said, "Hey, I'm calling these people back and they're not answering." I'm like, "Dude, it's Sunday afternoon, like, just wait." And he's like, "Oh yeah." And then our admin was going through the calls and he was telling people, he's like, somebody called and they're like, "I'm in X location," and he's like, "Oh man, yeah, I could come out there. It's a little far from me, but you either got to promise me the job or you got to give me gas money if you don't give me the job." And I'm just like, "Oh man, like this is not the right guy. But
Yeah.
he was somebody who was willing to take the leads and I was willing to take a chance on him. That chance lasted 48 hours. But, it's like sometimes I get desperate and I make exceptions, and then, I get into this kind of a situation. So what are those qualifiers for you? Are they, licensed and insured, or like what is that? Been in business a certain number of years, they have a certain number of crews, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I think established. They need to be established. What does that mean? Like if it's contractors, yes, they need to have at least one crew. And I would say even 25, $30,000, let's just say the minimum, if that, per month revenue. If that's the
You
case.
ask them that flat out?
I do ask them only if I get the hint that they open up about revenue, because a lot of times they talk about it. They openly talk about it. So I can distinguish by saying how many crews they have. They've been in business. Like I can understand at this point with my experience, okay, he's established. The way they talk, a lot of times that makes the difference. Like their mindset, you can hear it in the conversation when you talk. And if you're cussing at me, like I'm just your coworker, whatever it is, I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. I think another thing is, have they done marketing before? Because that's going to distinguish, do they believe in marketing or not? And if they're established, typically they've done some sort of marketing. Sometimes they don't. Word of mouth is huge in the, construction contractor industry, but, at least if they try it out, that helps as well. I ask them sometimes, "Hey, do you have a budget, a set?" That helps me understand they are thinking, to invest in their business. So these are like little questions that kind of help.
Yeah, that's great. I've never even asked that question. Like, what's your marketing budget? I've never asked that. So I think that would be a great qualifying question. If they're like, "I don't know," or zero, then they're probably not a good fit. Or if they're "I don't know, but let's figure it out together," that's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you gone more towards single niche, or do you still do multiple niches, or how's that develop?
I started all over the place, obviously, but there is one niche in mind. I'm still researching, but it's not in the construction industry. So I'm very excited about that. And I actually have a client for that. So
like white collar, still blue collar, or more white collar still?
More white collar. And it's like, I'm still doing some research on it and I'm testing them out with the client as well. I'm probably trying to get 2 more clients in the same industry just to test it out. And then there's another niche that I've been in for a while as well, that I have some legions from that might be good to go after. But I want to get out of the construction. Like I think just my ideal client, I want to be able to say, "Hey, here's your profit margin," and they get it. I don't want to be like, "What is the profit margin?" I think at this point, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably a good kind of signal of growth for someone in lead generation. If you have that mindset, like I've always been in like more white collar stuff, even though I've done home remodeling and things like that. I was an attorney, right? So I worked at a company and did all that. And so when I came in, especially once I started working with Patrick, I'm like, well, how can we apply this model to more white collar businesses, and we got a few of those clients in the earlier days, and it just, I don't know, it didn't really work out as well as I thought it would, but those were the particular clients and situations that we were in. Not to say that it wouldn't work, it does for sure, but it was just those situations didn't work, and we had so many established assets in just kind of general contracting and all of that I had to put my sights towards that instead of switching gears and switching directions for Patrick's agency. But I really enjoyed it, and I like the strategy of it. You know, at one point I was using the heat maps to try to sell a deal to a private equity firm. So if you have the mindset and the creative ideas around like how do you apply this stuff, so it was a chain of stores in California. They were in 33 cities. Each one of them did about $1 million a year, and a private equity firm was going to acquire the entire company. So I took 5 of those locations, brick and mortar locations, ran heat maps, and showed them where their ranking was for the top 5 keywords in their niche, and gave them the kind of blueprint and said, here's how, what if you could increase the sales by 10% in each one of those locations out of the gate? Like, we're talking about, you know, $3 or $4 million the first year. Well, to somebody in private equity, like, why wouldn't you do that? I think, you know, most of the private equity guys I see are losing money. They like to lose money because they like to come in and overmanage everything. But, you know, the idea is that you can tee that up and show somebody from a portfolio standpoint, like, here's a massive opportunity. Again, applying the heat map, not to, hey, here's a landscaping, landscaping in city A, but here's like a bigger picture idea of how you can grow a really already existing pretty large company into something like 10%, 15%, 20% bigger in a pretty short period of time, because you can see exactly where the holes are. So I was trying to work with business brokers also. Those guys are hard to get a hold of. If you have some in your network, or you can get access to some of them and really sit them down and show them the opportunity to use your tools. I mean, sometimes I think like the heat map and whatnot, and just your own, lead generation skill set, and work with them to show these business owners that are teeing up to sell. I had another guy on a deal on the East Coast. He was a very successful, I think he was plumbing and HVAC. This was the first year I was in lead gen. Before I even met Patrick, I was working with somebody else, and he was ready to sell. And I was trying to sell him on, basic marketing. And he's like, well, I'm going to sell my company. Well, had I had all these tools, I would have been able to go in and say, hey, like, why don't we keep your company for the next 24 months? And let's do all this research. Like, let's pump this thing up. Let's pump the numbers as much as we can. And then when you sell, you're going to get a multiple on that is even way better than what you're going to get right now. So it's like, I mean, there's just so many opportunities with the skill set and applying them in that way. So I hope that really works out for you, and that you can move forward in that, because I love those kinds of ideas and creative application.
Yeah. Real quick, you mentioned the brick and mortar. You did Legion for that, or was that just like SEO?
No, it was just a deal. I knew a private equity guy, and I was telling him kind of what I was doing with lead generation, and he asked me to help him. And so I was kind of just digging in. I'm like, hey, let me do this research for you. Let me show you what we can do. Because he was trying to convince, well, he wasn't trying to convince, he was just kind of like doing due diligence on the deal. But it's like adding that, what if you had like an entire presentation of the heat maps, the keyword rankings, the opportunity to improve those rankings in each one of those locations, and you were presenting that on a $30 million deal. That sounds sexy to me. Those are the kinds of deals I want to be involved in. It sure beats taking $1,000 from, chucking a truck. So that's where my mind was at in my earlier days of lead gen, and I think that having that the more business experience that I have, led me to be able to work with Patrick and his companies and all of that. But it's like, that's where I was going. I was immediately trying to apply the skills that I was learning in lead gen into a bigger, sort of more white collar application of it. And I think there's a ton of opportunity there.
Yeah. And I think when we're ready, I think our goal would be to actually acquire businesses in the future of using the skills that we have. I think that would be really cool. But we're not there quite yet. So in the future.
Yeah, acquire a business where you see a ton of opportunity. Like this HVAC guy on the East Coast I was talking about, like, he was a major player. He had a big brand. Like, it was, he was probably worth 5 to 7 million. I mean, his company that probably would have been a $5 to $7 million sale. You're probably not talking about buying a company that big, but I'm just saying, like, when you come into something like that and you do the research and you're like, wow, here's, like, you can just see as a lead gen marketer, you can see the opportunities. It's crazy, right? It's like, oh my God, like, you are missing the boat all over the place. This is already $5, $6, $7 million company. Like, what could we do in a year if we were working together when we really had some resources to throw at this thing? Like, we could make it 10 million, like, let's go. Like, what are you waiting for? So yeah, it's awesome. So how do you, where you're at right now, and even in the beginning, I kind of want to give people a sense of your journey. Is the reason I named this called Jannery's Journey, is because, like, where did you start with this stuff? Where'd you go? Like, how did you start out with your fulfillment? Where are you at now? Like, how did that trajectory kind of play out with coming in, learning to model, doing it yourself, outsourcing? Like, how did that look for you?
So at the beginning, you're learning everything, right? So you have to do it in order to learn. I recommend doing that. One thing that I wish I would have done while I was still working my 9 to 5 is really organize things so that way I can hire people right away. So for me, I've been up and down with this, just, me getting my own way, but I didn't start hire until 2019, and I started this probably 2019. And when I started hiring, what I was doing, it was a lot of the outsourcing, like Fiverr Legit, like little pieces and tasks, but predominantly I did all the work from A to Z, which I don't recommend if you do everything from the beginning. I think there's a time where you should start hiring pieces by pieces so you can buy back your time early on. I highly recommend that. I think while you're working a job and you have steady income coming in, build that team up. So I hired wrong. Like, I put the cart before the horse, and hired like 3 salespeople. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no system and process. I just was trying to get out. I wanted to be the CEO, right? Without having everything established and the foundation done correctly. I also built a bunch of assets, like 100 plus assets, websites, lead gens. And that's why I thought, okay, now I need to sell these, but I skipped the whole part of, ranking them, monetizing them, being ready, having everything in place. So that happened in 2019. I had, at that point, I think I had like 100 or so websites. Out of those hundreds, I think 20 of them or 15 of them was actually rented out. And then, believe it or not, due to that, I did not do a good job because the hiring did not work out. I hired people all over the place with no system and training. I lost clients because I neglected my lead gen. So that really screwed me up. So I kind of went down and out, back up again. And then I partnered up with Joe Gelante 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And now we're kind of restarting everything, new branding, a lot of stuff that I've learned. Whatchamacallit, at this point, I'm just working on niching down and establishing everything so it can be done correctly.
And so do you have people hired now, or are you just kind of like putting better process in place?
Yeah, I learned from that mistake. So right now, right now we don't really have much. We tried this new web designer, it didn't work out that well. We have another web designer we worked with before, but we're gonna start hiring on Indeed. Indeed.
Okay. Why Indeed?
Because you're gonna get better quality.
Right.
And what we've been learning, obviously, is to really have to do hiring correctly. And I think that's the biggest mistake. It's going to save you a lot of money. Don't go cheap, do it right, and have a process in place. So that way, for the long term, you have the right people, the right seats in your company. So that way you can really scale. Because if you don't have that in place, it's kind of hard. You can get all the clients you want. It doesn't.
You're going to pay on the other side of it. I think that's one of the mistakes that Patrick has thought about, that he's made, is he hired super cheap in the beginning, and then built this massive portfolio, and then there's all these holes in it, so I can definitely identify with that. And I've always thought, like, if you set up 10 sites and sell 2 of them, you're still still ahead of the game. You don't want to have that low of a success rate, but you can still win in lead gen with a 20% success rate on your sites. But I think going out that many, like 100 at a time, that's a lot. You have a lot of expenses, you have a lot to manage, and I'm sure you learned a lot through that. I went out initially with 25 sites and 25 GMBs when I first got in lead gen, and I got upside down. I was bleeding capital, and that's what forced me into sales. So I'm grateful for all of that part of my own journey. But if I had to do it over again, I would have chosen 5 sites and really crushed those 5 sites. And if I only sold 1 of them, I still would have been better off than, going and doing all the extra work that I did to try to get 25 separate sites and GMBs rolling. That was, I think, I know that was my biggest mistake.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even the GMBs, I mean, I paid to get GMBs done and all that stuff, and I lost a bunch of them because that disorganization of all over the place. And then, so I agree. I would have started small and have a good system and process.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get too far over the skis and crash and burn by taking on too much early on, because even though it is a pretty lean model and there's not you can run it, without too many expenses, that it can still get the better of you if you don't have an unlimited budget and you're trying to transition from maybe a day job over into more entrepreneurial space like lead gen. It could be a challenging transition. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here, is somebody like I did it too. Like I worked in corporate for 10 years, but I was already way out of corporate when I started lead gen. Like, it's not like I made the transition from corporate to lead gen. Like, that transition from corporate to entrepreneurship lasted many, many years. I exited corporate around 2014, I guess, and started lead gen 2018. So I was 4 years sort of in this weird space where I didn't know what I was doing next, and just kind of, living day to day, and like, okay, well, what's that thing that's going to inspire me to really commit and go all in, and like, this is what I want to do next with my job, with my life, and lead gen was what the answer was. It's like, it fits my personality,
It's a great business model. It's a great business model. I'll say this, adding to what you're saying. My takeaway, I think, that I realized is, and this probably applies to many of us, before I was running my business as an employee, right? Instead of running my business as a CEO.
Right.
Even if you're not there 100%, you see what I mean? So you have to transition. That has been a challenge for me, to transition from reporting to somebody.
Right.
They're telling me what to do. And I think this is the problem with most entrepreneurs at the beginning too. Nobody's telling you what to do. It's up to you. Like, this is complete, and everything's in your control. So I think education on business, the foundation, is going to be important. Lead gen obviously is a great business model, know those skills, but having the foundation of business is important if you really are trying to run this as a real business and get to multi-million-dollar businesses.
Right. Well, not only having the foundation of it, but actually, like you said, having the mindset and the mentality of it. I haven't really thought about it in those terms necessarily, as specifically as like you just stated it. Like, that's, I mean, I didn't have role models in my life that were necessarily entrepreneurs. As I was growing up, everybody was employees. It's like, go work for somebody else, have stability, get your 401k and all of that. And that never appealed to me, even though I did kind of fall into it and get stuck into it for a bunch of different reasons that we don't need to go into right now. But, making that transition mentally from, I'm going to go work for somebody and collect a paycheck, and then starting as an entrepreneur, you're still running that program, or at least I was. It sounds like you were too. And that can definitely hold you back, because you're not delegating, you're not learning the skill of delegation. You're just stuck in the business and not working on the business, which is where you should be. And I think, even at the higher level the more successful, some of the more successful lead gen people, I think they still struggle with that. Maybe everybody struggles with that. I don't know, but it is a process and of learning and a skill set of delegation. And I'm getting better at it, but I'm trying to buy back my time in every moment. And it's, I'm feeling a shift right now. Like there's a next level coming on where it's like, why am I messing around down here with all this smaller level stuff it sounds important, it seems important, but then if I really put all that energy up to this higher level partnerships and different things like that, and relationships, like that's where the real magic is going to happen. That's where you go from X to a multiple instead of X to an increase. You know what I mean?
100%. Positioning yourself to be able to focus on that. Like I said,
Yeah.
building the team correctly. That's going to play a
Right.
role. So
Yeah, for sure. What are the most effective kind of techniques or approaches in your business that you've learned? Like, what do you think is like going to make the biggest difference for you in 2023?
I mean, one, niching down is going to
Yeah.
change because it's going to be much easier to run the business and scale. I mean, it's a matter of me putting everything in place, and I think we're going to skyrocket just because of my expertise is going to help. I think that, and focusing, like we just talked about, I think me focusing on what I'm good at, and Jelante obviously focusing on what he's good at, and then just running this as like a well-oiled machine, that's going to change a lot. That's going to play a difference in mindset and time management overall. Because I know we talked about mindset, but I think that has been the biggest challenge.
Yeah, we could never talk about mindset enough. In my opinion, it's like it's a never-ending game, right?
Yeah.
It's a never-ending practice of up-leveling mindset and getting to the next level of belief in yourself, belief in the business model, belief in your team, the belief in the people around you, your network, like all of those things to be like, I can take this to the next level. Because building a business up to multiple millions of dollars, like that's, it takes, you have to put a lot of shit together to make that happen, and mindset is definitely one of them.
100%. And I think that's the biggest thing. Last year, balance was like neglected. And I think this year, I'm making sure I am balanced in everything. Because I think when we talk about business is everything, but let's not forget why we started the business, what is our goals with the business, and making sure that there's a balance in your life, relationship, friendships, yourself, self-care, spirituality. Like you have to make sure you balance all that. So that way you can be the best entrepreneur in your business and build your business up. So we can't neglect those areas. And that's, I think, what I did. And this year I'm working on that. Like I'm going back to the gym, like I was working out at home. That's not enough. Just different things that energize me. So that way, and then anything that does not energize me, I don't want it. I'm like,
Yeah.
And that's including people. It could be people.
Yeah, for sure.
Clients. I don't care who you are. I am going to remove you. I'm going to protect my energy and space. So
yeah, I talk about that a lot in the flow state series because my word for last year was flow, and it's just been an amazing journey to be intentional about that and to be able to recognize those things that take me out of that flow and the things that put me into flow and be like, okay, let me eliminate this stuff over here and let me move towards these things that keep me energized and jazzed. And that's part of delegation is like, okay, well, let me delegate those things. They still have to be done, right? And then delegation and being successful at that, or even unsuccessful and learning something from it and doing it better the next time, delegating it better the next time, then I'm like, oh, wow, I just bought back a piece of time, even if it's only like this 20-minute task here, this 20-minute task there, and then it adds up at the end of the week. It's like, wow, I had an extra hour. Maybe I wasted that hour, the first few weeks, but then it's like, okay, well, I can reallocate that, even if I just close my eyes and take a nap, it's still better. It's still a better use of my time because I'm re-energizing to do the bigger things that I want to do,
Yeah, I just got into painting. Like art is huge in my family, like literally acrylic, oil, like I'm talking about painting. Like I'm not there quite yet. I don't do that quite yet, but I'm trying to discover if I have that. So for me, my break is no technology. I want to do something that is either with nature or something that I am passionate or I enjoy. So I just got one the other day on Amazon. It's just paint art. You put you just kind of coloring book for adults, but with paint. And I enjoy it. And you have no idea the creativity that comes out of me. Like all these ideas start coming in just because I'm doing that. And it does just apply as an entrepreneur. It's really fantastic. So that's my new hobby.
Nice.
Well,
that's awesome. You can use that as a catalyst for creative application in business. I mean, that's ultimately what we mean by flow states. Like you're doing everything in your life on a personal and professional level so that you can tap into that creative energy and inspiration and follow the hunches and intuitions that you should follow or that you could follow because they're opportunities. The biggest moves are the ones we don't make. Like I ended up in Florida again because I felt like Patrick and I needed some time together. I had to leave because my personal situation back in Texas a few weeks ago. And I was like, man, I was supposed to be there for a couple extra weeks. I was feeling that we needed to spend time together. And I'm like, I got the inspiration. I'm like, I'm just going to go. So the next day I bought a ticket. I came down here. Best move I made because it's like, we're getting so much done. We're very productive. We're moving things forward and all of that. It's that inspiration of just being like, yeah, let's make it happen. Like, this is what I need in the moment. Let's do it.
Did you just say you moved down here?
No. I just came down here for the
okay. I'm like, wait, hold up.
No.
Okay, cool.
Not that serious, but I just
okay. I'm like, wait,
no.
No, yeah, it's important. I think all these things are really important to be a successful entrepreneur. And I think we just got to think about these things and apply it.
Right. All right. Well, shall we open it up for a few questions? Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Jannery about her journey? Doug says he struggles with stick figures. So I don't know if he wants to ask some painting advice or anything like that. Anybody want to raise their hand and get in there? Greg says he's starting to play saxophone again. That's great. I mean, these types of things I don't want to say balance. I'm not sure that balance is the right word for me personally, just because it's like my whole existence revolves around the flow of things. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna work really hard and then I'm gonna take a break. It's like I'm gonna work really hard and I'm gonna do other things that are also somewhat in alignment and playing into that. Like my play is I'm going out and trying to have a better mindset, or I'm trying to learn a new skill, or I'm listening to a book or whatever, so that I can be better in my professional life. But that's my personal interest too. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of a weird spot.
I love that. I'm going to take that, Jeff. I'm not going to say balance anymore. You're right. It's about the flow and the alignment. So
I think when you and I also tap in a lot, as most of you guys have heard, like to Napoleon Hill and Neville Goddard and those guys, from the books that they've written and just the mindset kind of content that they've put out there, like almost 100 years ago, they were talking about all this stuff. And it's like that single point of focus, like how can you focus everything towards the vision that you want to see brought forth? And when you do that, it's not about you're working 9 to 5 and then you're going Netflix and chill. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's like, if you want to do something big in life, like, you got to focus. That doesn't mean you have to be working 24/7, the sort of quote unquote version of work, but everything that I do plays into what I'm trying to see brought forth, the vision that I want to have of my life. Everything that I do has some kind of supportive nature to that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. If I would pick one word to describe or say what has more of my challenges through the years, it's been focus. I'm a big procrastinator. I was, and not having a clear vision on that stuff. So focus, consistency, 100%. I completely agree with you. That's everything.
Clarity, focus, and consistency, I think, are that's sort of a lights out combination, right? You have to get really clear about what you want. Once you are clear, then it's like, okay, well, marshal all of your energy and resources towards making that a reality. And then the only thing left is to take action, right? What do you got, Mr. Doug?
Yeah, so thank you, Jannery, for sharing. It was great, but it brought up a couple of things in my mind. One is I still struggle with delegation. I'll be honest. No one can do it as well as I can do it, and it doesn't have to be as well as I do it, because when you have two people doing it, you're going to get better results than just one person doing it. So I do struggle with that, and I admit it, but I'm working on that. Actually, just hired an ops manager, so hopefully I can, reduce my time by maybe 20% to start. We'll see if I can get more than that. But yeah, great things, and we've all been there. I have struggled with other things, hiring people, not hiring the right person. So I mean, we all make these mistakes and hopefully learn from them. I did drop a couple things in the chat. You guys might want to take a quick look. There's 3 different sites that I have found to help hire people in the South America region, in addition to just LinkedIn and some other things. So I did drop that in there for everyone. So
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
yep, thank you.
I haven't heard of most of those. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the delegation, Doug, like, and this is that control factor, maybe it is, like you said, but as long as, what is it, 80% done right, 20, am I saying that wrong,
That's
Jeff?
100% awesome.
There you
80%
go.
right is 100% awesome.
Yeah, it's 100% awesome. So, at the end of the day, it's a struggle, but we just have to apply what we consume. So if we're learning things, let's apply it. I'm speaking to myself on that. And it's always a work in progress. We're never going to be perfect. And entrepreneurs, we're learners. That's what we do. We problem solve and we learn and we get better. And that's just
Well, the target changes too as you move forward and you're more skilled, more things become possible. And then if you're ambitious, like I think most of us are, then we're gonna up the game. We're gonna up the the potential of what we're trying to hit. I was in Dan Sullivan's strategic coach program years ago, and he has an 80% approach where when he's delegating, he just says, hey, just do the best you can. And he expects it to be 80%, 80% this for me. So I have another entrepreneur I work with, and because we were both in that program, it's always with her, 80% this for me. So I go do the first draft, give it back to her. She does her 80%, and then we're at 96%. And if you do one more iteration, then it's 96% is pretty good, right? Like,
pretty good.
it goes up from there. So we can both tweak it together. And so that is a good approach also, is don't expect it to be everything that you want, especially in the beginning, right? Like that person you're delegating, that team member you're delegating to, will learn your quirks and expectations along the way and deliver hopefully a better and better product if they're the right member, the better result along the way. But just expect 80%. It's like, hey, do the first draft. This is the format that I like to use. This is the type of product that I'm looking for, type of result that I'm looking for. So do the best you can to get me that and not expect it to be perfect. And then you're like, okay, that's 80%. That's really good. It's awesome, right?
Yep.
But then let's go up from there. So I think the expectation behind it can also be a barrier if we're like, well, I gave them this task and they relatively sucked because they didn't do it as good as I could, So yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's scary. Like I think Doug probably is kind of saying this too. It's like it's maybe scary is not the right word, but it's kind of like, you're resistant to giving that over because I want it done really well, and I know that it's not going to be done as well as I could do.
Yeah.
And that's a resistance. So we all have to overcome that because we know that if we're going to, there's no question we're not going to be able to build a significant company by ourselves. We have to have team members. That's just the way it works. And if you want to get somewhere, we got to work with others. So
Yeah, and that's where that run the business employee that I was talking about, trying to run it by yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, anybody else have a question? We're right at the top of the hour. I just am so grateful that Jannery was able to come on with us and share her experience. I have my own experience in lead gen, and And I look back and I literally smile because I've had such a blast in lead gen. And despite the challenges and the times when I was never going to give up, but the times when I'm so down and just like, wow, like what did I get myself into? But it's like, these are the moments when, or those have been the moments when there's big breakthroughs, right? Then that's led to just such amazing opportunities along the way, and just learning and growth. And as an entrepreneur, I feel like that's what it's all about. Is it's all about growth for me. It's like Jannery said in the beginning. It's not all about the money. It's like, how am I growing as an individual, as a business person? What kind of impact am I making? Who can I bring up with me? All that kind of stuff matters. So yeah, thank you for coming on, Jannery.
Thank you for having me. I
Yeah, you bet.
appreciate it. I learned so much. If anybody, well, don't bombard me, but if anybody has any questions outside of this, a little bit about me, just shoot me a message and I'll get to you when I can.
Yeah, there you
But
go.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm very passionate about helping beginners and stuff like that, especially if you're at the place, save you from all the headaches that I had. Cause yeah, that's kind
Yeah,
of,
well, I mean, that's what we're trying to do here, is to do one-to-many so that you don't have to answer all those questions individually. Or if somebody doesn't feel comfortable reaching out to you, they've got a lot of insight into who you are and your path in lead gen, because we all have a different path. And it's like I say, I love hearing the stories because I've had such a blast on my own. And it's like, I know that you stayed positive. Like, we didn't talk about the events where we met, but back in the day, we were going all over the place. Like, we were in Vegas together and San Diego together. We've been in Miami together. We've been in a lot of places together, and just always having a good time and enjoying the lifestyle of lead generation. So I've always appreciated having that friendship with you.
yeah, 100%. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. All right, y'all, have a great week. Go get some wins, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.